This video is going to be showing you the difference between vintage old needles and the difference between new needles. So we've got a original Simcoe Sanger needle here, and this is a modern needle here. We're going to show you the difference in these. The modern needle's got a scarf right here above the eye. The original Simcoe Sanger needle doesn't. Now this is why some of these older machines sews different according to the needle, and that's why some of the old machines will act different with old needle and a new needle. And you can see how the scarf is taken out. Now the hook on an old sewing machine is designed without this scarf, so the hook's going to set farther away from the needle because you've got all this extra metal here. Now the newer machines, the needle's going to set closer because you've got all this metal taken out right here. So this can cause skipping of thread. So if your old machine ain't sewing like a new machine, this is why you're not picking up thread, and sometimes you're skipping thread even though the machine may be in time. Sometimes the thread will get pulled real tight as it's going through all the layers of fabric. It'll pull it real tight, and it'll get pushed up against this scarf, and the needle will pass on past it. Where this, it has nowhere for it to go. The needle will go right up against the metal and catch the thread. So this is why a vintage machine will sew different with modern needles, and this is why modern needles will act different in an old machine, is because the hook has a different now if you was to put one of these in a new machine, the hook would most likely start hitting the needle because you're missing this scarf. So they changed the hook to the needle, and when they changed the needle, they changed the hook. So this is why when you get a modern machine, you're going to have differences in the way it performs according to the needle you use. And you can see they put a little bitty cutout right here for the thread to hang in here, but then you can see there's no scarf cut in the needle here, and all this metal's been removed out, so it's easy for the needle to come down and the thread be real tight right here, and then the hook just push the thread over and go past it without catching it because it gets caught in this little gap right here. So that's going to be the difference that you're going to have in these needles. So you've got to consider this when running an old machine with modern needles. You're going to have to, especially when you're quilting and stuff like this, if you're not picking up thread properly, a lot of times it has to do with the change of the needle and the hook. When they modernized the machine and changed the needle, then they changed the hook with the needle. So you can tell the difference in them. Now we'll flip them over, and the other side's going to be identical to each other. If you flip them, so you can see the other side's going to be pretty much the same. You're going to still have the line going up on each side. It's all going to be pretty much the same. This is a regular Schmetz needle, and this is your original Simco needle. And you can even see part of the Simco writing right here. But that's going to be the difference in your needles, and it's going to give you a different result according to the area your machine's made in. And so you have to think of this when you're working with an old machine. Modern needles is going to be a little bit different, so they're going to have a little bit different results when it comes to sewing. A lot of people argue there's no difference. A sewing needle is a sewing needle, but there is a difference, and it will make a difference in the way the hook picks the thread off the needle, because the hook is designed to accommodate the needle. So if you change the needle and use the old hook, you're still going to have a different result, because you're going to have different tolerances in the length of the hook and how close it's going to come to the needle. Now, some machines, a lot of the rotary machines, you can pull the rotary hook in and out and change the gap between the needle. But a lot of your class 66 and class 15s, you got a fixed hook that's not going to change, so you can't adapt it. It's going to always be fixed. It's always going to be the same. So this is going to be why submachines is going to be a little bit different when you run new style needles. And you can just see how thick the original needle is. So that hook's going to be a lot shorter, where a modern machine you're going to have this cut out scarf, and the hook's going to be a whole lot closer to the needle. So this is going to be the difference you're going to have in needles. This is something to consider when buying a vintage machine and using a vintage machine. You're going to have to think about this, and this is sometimes can be a problem, because a lot of times you can't find the needles without the scarf, and most of the new needles has scarves in them. The old hooks are fixed and they can't be adjusted in or out, so the clearance is always going to be the same. So when you put a new needle in, you're going to have a whole lot difference right here where the hook goes through and passes. So depending on the type of sewing you're doing and how you sew, you may want to consider the changes that's going on here. Regular sewing, it's not going to make much of a difference, but sometimes when you're darning or doing a lot of quilting or something where the thread's pulled real tight and you're moving it a lot, sometimes you will get some skipping due to the changes of the needle and the hook tolerance. So this is something to consider when messing with a vintage machine and choosing needles. If you can still find needles that doesn't have the scarf, then you're better off running them. If you need a needle that's going to be closer to the hook and pick up the thread more, but with regular sewing you can use these they will work. But if you're doing stuff where the thread's going to be pulled really tight and going through a lot of fabric layers, then you're probably going to want a needle like this if you can find one, or you will want to go with a modern machine that's got this, or you'll go with a vintage machine with a rotary hook that the hook can be moved in and out and the tolerances can be changed to the hook. And that is something to consider when sewing with vintage machines.